Hey, this is Henry from IELTS LATAM, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to pronounce ED endings. This is a super important topic because every time you open your mouth you're probably going to need to pronounce a word with an ED ending in it, a regular verb or an adjective, and in the IELTS exam, if you can pronounce these correctly, it's going to really help your pronunciation score. If you can't pronounce these correctly, it's going to really hurt your pronunciation score. So in this session, we are going to go through two of the most common errors that learners make when pronouncing ED endings. We're going to learn how to pronounce the three different types of ED endings that there are. And then we're going to look at how to say some of these words in context so that you can say them and sound super fluent with some nice connected speech. So let's get into it. So now I'm going to demonstrate one of the most common problems that students have when trying to pronounce words that end in ED, okay? So I'd like you to listen and tell me what's the problem. Missed. Yesterday I missed the bus. Asked. At the end of the meeting I asked a question. Lived. In 2015 I lived in Bogota. So what's the problem there? Well, the problem is I'm adding this extra syllable over here, saying missed, watched, asked, stopped, called, lived, enjoyed, happened. Okay? Now, in the days of William Shakespeare, in old, antiquated English, yeah, maybe people spoke like that. But in modern English, people don't speak like that. So that is one of the most common problems people have when pronouncing words that end in ED. They add this extra sound and it sounds very obvious. Now listen to how I pronounce the words this time. I'm going to show you the second very common problem people have when pronouncing ED endings. Miss. Yesterday I missed the bus. Ask. At the end of the meeting, I ask a question. Live. In 2015, I live in Bogota. I was really sleepy and I want a coffee. I was really sleepy and I need a coffee. So what's the problem here? Well, the problem here is that I'm just not pronouncing anything at all. I'm just pronouncing these words as if they were in the present. I'm not actually changing the ending at all. It's the equivalent of someone saying, ayer cuando llegue mi mamá me habló. Alright, how does that sound? Does that sound correct to you? Should it be ayer cuando llegue mi mamá me habló? Or should it be ayer cuando llegue mi mamá me habló? Okay? Because if you don't pronounce those ED endings, you're basically just talking in the present, right? And it just doesn't sound right either. Okay, so now let's talk about the three different ways you can pronounce ED endings. Let's start over here with this column, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to pay attention to this consonant sound before the ED ending, okay? Now this consonant sound over here, call, all, if I put my hand here on my throat, call, I can feel a vibration, all. Take your hand, put it on your throat and say call, all. Can you feel a vibration there? Call. What about here? If you say live, or enjoy, or happen. With this final consonant, you should be able to feel a vibration and your tongue will probably be moving slightly backwards in your mouth as well. So then, if the final consonant has a vibration, then the natural and easy way to pronounce the ED ending will be with a little d sound. So you say a word like called, lived, enjoyed, happened. Good. If you like, pause the video, okay? I'd like you to practice pronouncing these words. Called, lived, enjoyed, and happened. Great. Sounding good. Now, is it called or called? That's right, it's called. Now, is this lived or lived? Exactly, lived, no extra sound. What about this one? Does this sound correct? If I say enjoy? No, it's enjoyed. Make sure you make that sound at the end. What about this one? Happen? Happened? Or happened? Yes, That last one, you've got to make a little d sound at the end, okay? But no extra happened. Excellent, well done. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so what about these ones here? Well, again, we're going to focus on this consonant just before the ED, okay? Now let's take our hand, put it here, and we'll say miss, or watch, ask, and stop. Now, this time, do you feel a vibration? No, no big vibration. Maybe like a little movement there, but no vibration. No vibration there. So, to pronounce these words in the past with the ED ending, you'd say missed, watched, asked, stopped. Okay? So, the ED is pronounced as a little okay? Missed, watched, asked, stopped. And here's an extra little trick for you. Sometimes these consonant clusters, like a sk or a pt, can be quite difficult. But in reality, when you speak quickly and fluently, you don't pronounce this very strongly. It sounds a bit more like asked or stopped, stopped, stopped. Your mouth barely makes the p or the k sound, so you just say asked or stopped. Okay, so take a moment. Practice pronouncing these words, okay? Wonderful, sounding good. Okay, so how do you pronounce these? Is it mised or missed? Watched? Watched? No, watched. Ask? Is it ask or asked? The second one, right? What about this one? Stop, stop, or stopped, stopped. Or stopped? Is it stopped? No, definitely not stopped. It's stopped. Very good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, how do you distinguish these two sounds? Well, actually, they're very similar. Doesn't really make a big difference how you pronounce them. But you can think of it like this. The t is like a hi-hat. And the d is like a bass kick. So, to practice those sounds, to get a really good feeling for where they are in your mouth, you can make a little beat. Or maybe something a little bit more reggaetonero. You could say. But you'll feel where this goes on your palate like a. And this one makes a little bit of contact with your teeth. Like there's not a really big difference. Many of my students say things like colt or enjoyed, which is kind of a sound. But it's not such a big deal. Doesn't sound too obvious. Don't worry about it. As long as you are pronouncing some kind of ED ending, that sounds better than saying colled or ask. Okay? Okay, and now for this third column over here. So, like these, we are going to focus on this final sound over here. Do you notice anything in common here? Alright. These finish with a t or a d. So want, start, need, decide. Okay, that's the final sound here. So how do you pronounce these words? Well, I'll show you. You pronounce them wanted, started, needed, decided. Okay? So what do you notice here? Well, you have to add an extra syllable. Want, wanted. Start, started. Need, needed. Decide, decided. Okay? Now in this case, you have to add this extra sound. Here, you don't add an extra sound. You don't say watched or happened, but here you do add an extra sound. You do say want, wanted. Okay? Now, a common error here is that many students don't add this extra sound when talking in the past. So that's what you need to do. Take a moment, pause the video, practice saying these words in the present and past, the present and past. Want, wanted. Decide, decided. Great, sounding good. So this in the past, is it want or wanted? This in the past, is it need or needed? Good, it's the one with that extra sound. You add the extra sound at the end. Needed, decided. So now I'm going to read through these one more time, okay? I'll read present then past, okay? So listen carefully. Can you hear the difference? After each column, you can pause the video and repeat after me, okay? So miss, missed. Watch, watched. Ask, asked. Stop, stopped. Call, called. Live, lived. Enjoy, enjoyed. Happen, happened. Want, wanted. Start, started. Need, needed. Decide, decided. Lovely. Sounding perfect. So now, how can you pronounce these words in context? Okay, we're going to look at a few sentences, and I'm going to show you a neat way to practice these, okay, and also some common problems to avoid. So, listen to how I say this sentence. I missed an important call because my phone had died. Okay. I asked a question at the end of the meeting. I stopped eating meat a few years ago. Last Saturday, we watched a movie. What happened at the end? When I lived in Bogota, I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, so what do you notice here? Well, I'll show you. Here, this final ed ending, which is a t, missed, connects with the next vowel. So you say, I missed an important call. Missed an important call. Okay? I asked a question. To question. To question. I asked a question. We watched a movie. Watched a movie. I stopped teething. I stopped teething. I stopped teething. What happened at the end? At the end. At the end. What happened at the end? When I lived in Bogota, lived in. When I lived in Bogota, I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, so take a moment, pause the video, practice saying these sentences yourself. Wonderful, sounding excellent. Now, if I say a sentence like, I miss an important call because my phone had died, does that sound right? No, not miss an important call, it's missed an important call. Or if I say, I ask a question, ask a question at the end of the meeting. No, I asked a question, If I say, when I live in Bogota, when I live in Bogota, or when I lived in Bogota, I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy it, or I enjoyed it. Now here's the thing. When an ed ending occurs before a vowel, which is very, very common, okay, it's very, very common. It sounds very obvious when you don't pronounce it correctly. So here's a tip. I suggest that you practice these words in isolation, but you also practice saying them in context before vowels, so you get a really good feeling for how it connects in a sentence. Because if you don't pronounce it like that, it's very, very obvious. Plus, in the IELTS exam, if you pronounce words with nice connected speech, you pronounce these phrases as chunks, it's going to really increase your score. So I really recommend practicing these sentences, personalized sentences, obviously. These are just ones that I made up, okay? I recommend you make your own personalized sentences with ed endings followed by vowels, and you practice saying things like, I enjoyed it a lot. I loved it. What happened at the end? It happened on Tuesday, okay? I watched a movie, asked a question. So I really recommend you practice these in context as well. So in this lesson, we went through 2 common errors that learners make with ed endings. We learnt how to pronounce the 3 types of ed endings, and then we learnt how to pronounce ed endings in context, and I gave you some tips for practice as well. So guys, I hope you found that lesson useful. Honestly, it's a super important part of your English, and it's a super important part of your pronunciation for the IELTS exam. So, if you'd like more tips on how to improve your pronunciation, your speaking, your English, or to prepare yourself for the IELTS exam, follow me on all the social media, and I'll see you in the next one.